Tonight, Americans desperate to escape Haiti as violence in the gang-occupied region intensifies. The U.S. evacuating dozens of citizens, but nearly 1,000 more are still trying to get out. The nation spiraling further into chaos as it remains without a leader. Deadly clashes between police and gangs continue to escalate. One woman recalls the terrifying moment she realized she was trapped in the country, the harrowing mission to get her out. Also tonight, Trump's assets in danger. The former president's legal team saying he cannot pay his $464 million bond in his New York fraud case. The state's attorney general threatening to seize his assets, including his iconic Fifth Avenue penthouse, and the growing backlash over his comments at a weekend rally, predicting a, quote, bloodbath in the auto industry if he loses the election. The fiery response from President Biden's campaign tonight. Plus, Hezbollah bomb maker. Customs and Border Patrol detaining a man at the southern border who claimed he was heading to New York to make an explosive. The investigation into that man's alarming claims. Burglary tourist warning. Thieves traveling internationally to target wealthy California neighborhoods, then trading in what they stole for cash to send back home. The growing trend forcing Los Angeles police to take new steps to tackle the problem. And Cougar attack survivor, a cyclist speaking out after being mauled by a cougar in Washington state. How her friends jumped into action to help her escape the jaws of that animal and save her life. Top Story starts right now. Good evening. I'm Ellison Barber in for Tom Llamas. Tonight, desperation mounting in Haiti as violence in the country dramatically escalates. Nearly a week after Haiti's prime minister announced his resignation, the nation remains in a dangerous power vacuum. Without any leadership, gangs are overrunning the region, even setting the police chief's home on fire. Just this weekend, police and gangs entering a deadly battle over territory. The rise in violence comes as the U.S. airlifts 30 Americans trapped in the gang-occupied nation. The Americans landing safely in Miami. The U.S. State Department says nearly 1,000 U.S. citizens have reached out for options to try and evacuate, a sharp increase from just last week. Ahead, we hear from an American who narrowly escaped after getting trapped in Haiti while on a mission. But it's not just Americans trying to flee. Haiti's citizens pouring into nearby Dominican Republic, filled with anguish and despair as many are loaded onto buses and sent back. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez starts us off tonight.
Tonight, more Americans are out of Haiti after a dramatic rescue operation. Congressman Corey Mills of Florida posting these pictures of 13 people whisked to safety. As the violence in Port-au-Prince escalates, more deadly gun battles between Haitian police and armed gangs led by Jimmy Cherissier, better known as Barbecue. One gang out with a slickly produced propaganda video showing it's heavily armed. Today, the State Department said nearly 1,000 Americans still trapped in Haiti have reached out to the U.S. Embassy.
Work is ongoing, and we have no higher priority than the safety and security of American citizens, though we certainly recognize the security situation is untenable.
Over the weekend, the U.S. evacuated more than 30 Americans, but it's private groups who are conducting some of the most dangerous rescues.
It was a little frightening.
Missionary Miriam Sinati is a baker from Jacksonville. She's now safe after a harrowing escape thanks to Project Dynamo, a veteran-led search and rescue organization.
We couldn't get to where the help was coming to. We couldn't get to Cape Haitian. We couldn't get to, different places to even get on a government plane.
And Gabe joins us now from outside of the White House. Gabe, what is the White House saying tonight about the effort to evacuate Americans from Haiti?
Well, Ellison, the White House says that an active analysis is underway, weighing the risk of trying to get Americans out, potentially through Port-au-Prince's airport, which has been closed now for some time. Now, Ellison, there are a lot of questions about whether that round of Americans that was evacuated over the weekend, they were actually taken out from a city in northern Haiti, which is far from the violence in Port-au-Prince. And so there are a lot of questions about those trapped Americans in the biggest danger, how they might get out, Else.
And Gabe, you were reporting along the Haitian border just last week, and now sources, I understand, are telling you the violence in Port-au-Prince is just on a whole new level. What makes this different than the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's right. And where we were was a rural part of the Dominican-Haitian border. And as I mentioned, the problem there was severe hunger. But in Port-au-Prince, as you saw in the piece, the violence has escalated dramatically. And really, over the weekend, from Friday into Saturday, has been an incredible escalation. The main gang leader there, known as Barbecue, he is basically now in an all-out war with the Haitian National Police. And we spoke with the director of the state broadcaster in Haiti, who says that it was knocked off the air today, therefore limiting Haitians' access to information. So the security situation there in Haiti deteriorating very quickly, and now that violence between the gangs and the Haitian National Police, we're told, is on a whole new level over the last few days, Alice.
Gabe Gutierrez at the White House, thank you. Now to our other major headline tonight, former President Trump's legal team announcing he cannot pay the $464 million bond due in his New York civil fraud case. It comes amid growing backlash after his comments this weekend about the auto industry, saying there will be a, quote, bloodbath if he doesn't win the election. NBC News senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Haake is following it all for us tonight.
Tonight, the fate of former President Trump's most famous properties could be up in the air, with Trump attorneys telling a judge he's unable to secure bond in the $464 million civil fraud judgment against him, asking a judge for an emergency stay. Guarantors won't accept real estate as collateral, but want nearly $500 million in cash, which Trump's company doesn't have, his lawyers say. If he cannot post bond for the full amount by next week, Democratic New York Attorney General Letitia James could start seizing his assets, potentially even his Trump Tower penthouse. In their filing, Trump attorneys argue the penalty is grossly disproportional when there were, quote, no victims, no damages, and no actual financial losses in the case. It comes as the Trump campaign also faces blowback amid Mr. Trump's new inflammatory rhetoric against what he calls criminal migrants.
They're not people, in my opinion, but I'm not allowed to say that because the radical left says that's a terrible thing to say. These are animals, okay?
Mr. Trump has vowed to bring back his Remain in Mexico policy that keeps migrants waiting outside the U.S. until courts decide their asylum cases. The Biden administration is releasing 85% of migrants into the U.S. while they wait for asylum decisions. And tonight, the presumptive GOP nominee also pushing back, saying Democrats, quote, pretended to be shocked at my use of the word bloodbath during this riff about Chinese car makers.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
Mr. Trump saying he was referring to President Biden allowing imports he says are killing the auto industry. Late tonight, calling Democratic attacks, quote, misinformation.
The word bloodbath, I used it about trade, essentially auto trade, because we're getting ripped off with Biden's really dumb auto policy.
The Biden campaign rejecting that it was about only cars.
Every single day, Donald Trump is promoting and endorsing and encouraging political violence on the stump.
And Garrett Haake joins us now from Washington. So, Garrett, a lot of news from the campaign trail tonight, but let's go back to that bond payment. The Trump team says that he cannot pay it, and they are asking for an emergency stay. Do we know when a decision could come on that request?
Well, so the judge could really rule at any time, including as early as today, and would have to rule by the end of next week. That's the current deadline by which the Attorney General could start seizing Mr. Trump's bank accounts or even his properties to satisfy the requirements of that judgment. So I'm refreshing the feed even as we speak to see when we might get news from the judge there.
And Garrett, we understand NBC News has some new reporting about President Biden's frustrations with his own campaign. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, our White House team has done some great reporting here about the president getting increasingly frustrated both by his low poll numbers and by the idea that he's being cocooned by his staff and not able to campaign as aggressively as he wants against Donald Trump and in the style in which he likes as a more traditional retail politician. Sources have told our White House team that he's swore and cursed and complained about these low poll numbers and really been pushing to be more active on the campaign trail, an itch that's been scratched a little bit over the last 2 weeks with him being more aggressive in swing states, including 2 stops coming up this week. But we see this all the time, Ellison, especially with presidents. I always feel like they're their own best advocate. They want to get out on the trail a little bit more than they're often able to do, given the rigors of the day job of actually being president.
Garrett Haake in D.C., thank you. For more on Trump's comments this weekend and what they might mean for the 2024 campaign, I want to bring in our political pros tonight. Michael Starr Hopkins, president of Northern Star Strategies and a former advisor to the Clinton and Obama campaigns, and GOP strategist Krisha Lenzo. Thank you both so much for being here. Michael, let's start with you since you are in D.C. and we're both here. The Trump team is responding to the backlash about Trump's bloodbath comments this weekend, saying that he was specifically referring to the auto industry. He did make those comments in the context of talking about auto manufacturing and trade with China. How do you respond to that defense?
Yeah, I mean, the president wants, or former president rather, wants to pretend like his comments exist in a vacuum. When he started that event, he started out by referring to January 6 protesters as patriots. That's how we get to the fact that he then is using words like bloodbath. Every time he opens his mouth, he sounds like a lunatic. And so, you know, I can understand why Americans don't understand what he's saying, because frankly, most of us don't understand what he's saying because it sounds so ridiculous, and it usually is a fomentation of violence. And so I'm glad I'm not a Republican, because I wouldn't want to have to defend that kind of language.
Krisha, I feel like you have been summoned with that. You are a Republican, and when we're talking about some of the languages that the language he has used, I mean, even beyond just that term bloodbath, we heard him in a speech talk about some migrants, saying that to him, some migrants are not people. We did hear him make comments about January 6 defendants who have been convicted, saying that they are hostages, which, as someone who reported from January 6 that day, morning to night outside of the Capitol, is simply not true. Is it difficult for Republicans to defend these comments? Would you defend them?
I would certainly defend his comments. With respect to the bloodbath, they were taken out of context. Even if you look at the dictionary definition of bloodbath, I used to be an economic reporter. This is a commonly used term. It was in the context of the auto industry, as he mentioned, President Trump. And with respect to the migrants he was talking about, certainly I would say migrants, or anyone in this country for that matter, and he used it again in the context of talking about MS-13 and gang members, anyone who rapes women, who attacks individuals in our nation, the way the individual who killed Laken Riley did, I would say they're subhuman. I think that people who, even just now, NBC News reported on the individual who's trying to come to New York and blow up New York with a bomb, potentially, according to reports. Those people are subhuman. So I think it's very, very important to look at the context and not just focus on the words. We should be focusing on the policies, which Joe Biden has failed on all of these issues.
Let's talk a little more about January 6 hostages. And when we're talking about this idea of crime as it relates to people who have come to the United States either illegally or who were simply not born here. I mean, there's been dozens of studies from Stanford dating back to the 1960s, studies in 2019 from Cato Institute that show people who are native-born Americans commit crime and violent crime at a much higher rate than people who were not born in this country and then come here. But on the January 6 comment and saying that those people are hostages, I think about people like Peter Stagger, I believe was his name, who's currently serving a 52-month sentence in prison for attacking a Capitol Hill police officer with a flagpole, and was also captured on video at the same time saying the only remedy here for them is death. Do you think those people are hostages? And is that difficult for Republicans when the president refers to people like that when we have real hostages, American citizens, currently inside of Gaza?
I think with respect to January 6th, he was referring to what we're seeing in the legal system more generally, which is the unfair persecution and prosecution of Republicans and people who...
But he was specifically talking about January 6th. He made very clear to say we have to free those J6 hostages.
Well, there are certainly individuals on January 6th who were taken into custody who do not deserve to be taken into custody.
And then prosecuted. Do you think people serving sentences right now from January 6th were unfairly prosecuted, like Peter Stagger?
I certainly think not necessarily necessarily Peter Stagger, but I would say many on that day were unfairly targeted and did not deserve to be in that situation, as we see President Trump now. The indictments, they're attacking him. He's unable to obtain the proper assistance legally or even with respect to the bond payment, because anyone who aligns themselves with President Trump or for freedom and values in our country, they are being attacked.
Okay, we're going to come back to the bond payment and talk a little more about that. But, Michael, let's talk a little more about that new NBC News reporting that Garrett Haake was referring to when we spoke with him from inside the Biden campaign, where there are people within his campaign saying to NBC News that President Biden has grown angry and anxious about re-election effort. And you look at his polling, and the concerns are understandable, right? He is polling behind Trump nationally and in almost all of the battlegrounds. And when you look at this that's on your screen here, his approval rating is lower than the last three presidents who have failed to win re-election. How concerned are you with the state of Biden's re-election campaign right now?
Look, to say that I'm not concerned would be disingenuous. I think anybody running against Donald Trump would be concerned, given what the consequences would be for his victory. But when you're Joe Biden running with wages up, inflation down, you're running against someone who foments violence, who foments discrimination, racism, who doesn't believe in democracy, who says on their first day they'll be a dictator. That's someone who I would like to run against, because as Joe Biden, you get to run on the record of democracy. Joe Biden has a long record. He's fought for democracy. He's fought across the country in terms of making sure that we are inclusive, that we're bringing both red and blue states together. And that's at the antithesis of what Donald Trump represents.
And Krisha, before we go here, you mentioned the bond payments.
Yes.
When we're talking about what we have heard from the Attorney General, Letitia James, saying that she would potentially seize his assets. From a political standpoint and on the campaign trail, what would that mean, do you think, for the Trump campaign if that were to actually happen?
Well, I think just looking at Letitia James in general, I worked with a candidate who ran against her. And if he had won, we wouldn't have had many of these problems with respect to, again, the unfair persecution and prosecution of a former president, which, again, relates to election integrity and our rights. And she's doing this because she ran on getting Trump. Every point of her campaign, she intended to do this. She said it in her rhetoric on the campaign trail. So it's no surprise she's going after him to seize his assets, because this is exactly what she's trying to do. She's trying to destroy the Trump organization. Luckily, ultimately, the Trump organization does have those assets. They may not be liquid, but they are in his real estate. And in this case, there really is no damages. And that's the problem. We all see it for what it is. Most Americans do see these 91 indictments for what they are, which is a targeting, again, not to use that word too much, but it really is no other term.
All right, Krisha Linzo, Michael Starr Hopkins, we have a few months before the election, so I'm sure we will all be speaking again. Thank you both. We appreciate your time and insights tonight. Thank you. We now move to a developing story happening on the U.S.-Mexico border. Tonight, a man is in custody after claiming to be a member of Hezbollah. An official with Customs and Border Protection telling NBC News that the man, a Lebanese migrant, attempted to enter the country and admitted to plans of making a bomb. All this unfolding earlier this month with an active investigation currently underway. NBC's Julia Ainsley joins us now from Washington, D.C. with more. So, Julia, what else do we know about this situation and the man in CBP custody?
Well, we know that a man named Basil Ibadi is from Lebanon. He's 22 years old, and he crossed the southern border near El Paso earlier this month. And when he was taken into custody by Customs and Border Protection, he told them that he was on his way to New York and that he wanted to make a bomb. And then later he said that he was affiliated with Hezbollah, that Lebanese terrorist organization. Now, it's really unusual for someone to make a claim that they are affiliated with a terror organization just voluntarily. Typically, the way these people are stopped is they have a name or an affiliate on the known or suspected terrorism watch list, and they're stopped that way. So it's very unlikely, very unusual, rather, that this man would make that claim voluntarily, but it's being investigated and taken seriously, and he's in custody at this time, Allison.
In the Supreme Court, Julia, just today, they've extended an order that was set in Texas, barring a law that allows state police to arrest migrants. What does that mean, big picture?
Well, it indefinitely postpones Texas Governor Greg Abbott's plans to allow his state and local law enforcement to arrest anyone they suspect might have crossed the border illegally. This was going to open up Texas to a range of issues, and advocates say it could be an extreme violation of people's rights and could lead to racial profiling. Abbott said it was necessary given Biden's border policies, but really even the conservative bench on the Supreme Court has time and time again sided with the federal government over states when it comes to any disagreements over who should be enforcing immigration law. And this decision today, although they're not weighing in on the merits of the case and the law, this decision today was consistent that the federal government should be in charge of enforcing immigration law. Allison.
Julia Ainsley in Washington, D.C. Thank you. Next tonight, we're learning more about what brought on some of the spring break violence in Florida that left one person dead and 3 others injured this weekend. Authorities now issuing curfews and security measures, trying to keep residents and revelers safe among the mayhem. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock is there with the latest.
Violence tonight once again upending spring break celebrations in Florida, this time in Jacksonville Beach.
We are currently working 3 separate unrelated shootings.
All of that in a roughly 40-minute span, sending bystanders scrambling and the city into lockdown.
80 people were running down the street. Watch a dude drop to his knees.
Now we're learning new details about what might have prompted gunfire that led to 3 people injured and 1 killed. Jacksonville Beach police releasing videos of hundreds of juveniles brawling on the beach.
When the crowd was dispersed, that's when the shootings happened.
And it's not the only incident raising alarm.
Hey, we got a fight over there.
A fight in New Smyrna Beach near Orlando led Volusia County deputies to draw their weapons when they say a 16-year-old pulled out a firearm. Officers chasing down the teen and eventually arresting him. Incidents like these hitting hard for families and vacationers.
It's like the last thing you want to worry about is coming somewhere to have fun and then getting hurt.
But farther south, Miami Beach is using a series of measures to crack down on violence.
Do you feel safe this year?
Of course, yes.
Ocean Drive now, a stark contrast to previous years. The city manager also implementing a midnight curfew this weekend.
For 72 hours out of an entire year, we made a decision, and last night, being out on the streets, I think it was the right decision.
Miami Beach now a safe spot in a state still struggling with spring break mayhem.
And Sam Brock joins us now from Miami. Sam, as you just mentioned in your piece there, Miami Beach has been largely safe so far. What measures is Jacksonville Beach considering to try follow in the footsteps of Miami Beach?
Sure, Allison, maybe they would be wise to follow in Miami Beach's footsteps, which of course they did that this past weekend. There was no violence. The chief of police, you heard from him a moment ago, said he is not going to be implementing a curfew at this point. He was asked, are you going to be ramping up resources, more officers on the ground? He said, I don't want to tip my hand, but we'll be acting on the intelligence that we gather. But here's the thing, Allison, the intelligence, they already had gathered there was going to be this beach brawl on Sunday from 2 to 8 o'clock. There was a flyer announcing it, and police were not able to intervene, at least effectively enough, to prevent these 3 shootings. We've asked the police department, what did you do? When did you try to break it up? So far, I've not received a response on that or a real answer, so still trying to dig. As for Miami Beach, you mentioned the change here year over year. 500 arrests here last year and 2 homicides that shut things down. 0 shootings so far, 0 major incidents, and about 250 arrests. So it's been a remarkable improvement, even if it's come with more crackdowns here in Miami Beach. Allison?
Sam Brock in Miami, thank you. And while spring break is underway there in South Florida, much of the Southeast is still suffering through frigid winter-like temperatures. 23 million under freeze alerts tonight. Snow showers also continuing across the Great Lakes and Northeast, dropping snowfall totals as high as 10 inches. So let's get right to NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, what are you watching tonight?
Allison, we all knew this was going to happen, right? I mean, we had an incredibly warm winter. The beginning of March has been warm. It's been beautiful. We just knew eventually we'd get slapped backwards into winter once again. And that's happening tonight in the South. As the sun sets, temperatures are going to plummet. When you wake up in the morning, we're in the 30s all the way into southern Mississippi. So we're worried about the areas that have already had, the blooms, the flowers, any sensitive plants that were planted too early. That's what we're worried about. There's a lot of people covering stuff up with blankets to try to save them through the night. Because after this, hopefully, we should be okay. And it does warm up quickly once the sun goes up tomorrow. Still only about, 50s, which is below average for this region. And then it gets warmer towards the end of this week. Temperatures into the 60s and 70s. They just have to survive tonight. So, Allison, if anyone has any, sensitive vegetation, that's what we say, make sure it's covered up or bring it inside.
Yeah, no kidding. So even though the southern cold is not going to be over soon, winter is not over for a lot of other people as well, right?
Yeah, especially the northern half of the country. You can't put the shovels and the boots away yet. So here's what we're going to deal with. We have some snow showers going through northern New England. Then another system comes down through Montana, through the Dakotas. This is going to bring some snow to areas like Minneapolis, Green Bay, Milwaukee, through Michigan. And this should bring some snow to New England by the time we get to Saturday. So the northern half of the country, plowable snow likely by the end of this week.
Bill Cairns, thank you. Still ahead tonight, life or death pursuit. A suspect driving off while a deputy in Florida clung to his car. The officer managing to fire his weapon while holding on for his life. How this scary situation came to an end. Plus, police in California cracking down on so-called burglary tourists. How authorities say international crime rings are coming to the U.S. to rob homes in the L.A. area. Now to a concerning crime trend plaguing cities in Southern California. So-called burglary tourists are coming to the U.S. on short-term visas from South American countries and then allegedly robbing homes of cash, jewelry, and electronics. The LAPD now launching a task force to try and combat the international crime ring. NBC News correspondent Dana Griffin is in Los Angeles with the latest.
Tonight, the LAPD launching a new special task force after a concerning rise in so-called burglary tourists, as residents in Southern California on high alert.
We have a significant increase in burglaries from organized groups that are outside this country, that are coming into the country, and they are targeting high-end residents.
Police say the burglary tourists are part of international crime rings traveling from countries in South America, the majority from Chile, with the mission to break in and rob homes in the U.S. Home surveillance videos like this capturing the moment a group of individuals break a window and enter a home in Redlands, California. An all too familiar story for residents in the area.
It's very, disturbing. I mean, it rattles us as a neighborhood, and we've been here for years and years.
The LAPD says there have been more than 900 residential burglaries in the area since January. And in Orange County, Irvine police say in the past 35 days, there have been 34 home burglaries similar in nature to burglaries tied to the South American crime rings. Police say the intruders use sophisticated technology like Wi-Fi jammers, drones, and even camouflage suits to stake out homes and disable security cameras.
Some sort of device by burglars that actually deaden, kill, or stop Wi-Fi from operating.
Ransacking residents for cash, jewelry, electronics, and high-end handbags. But how are these highly coordinated criminals able to get into the U.S.? Police say they arrive here legally on 90-day tourist visas before hitting some of the wealthiest neighborhoods across the country. San Diego police investigating this crew of burglars caught on camera and suspected in more than 21 burglaries.
They are up in their game. They're getting smarter as how they're acting and what they're doing,
making them extremely difficult to track down, according to police.
These are Chilean burglary crews.
But a possible win for authorities in Arizona, who arrested a 17-year-old Chilean national and 2 adults, all suspected members of this heist ring and accused of robbing multiple homes in Los Angeles.
Dana Griffin joins us now from Los Angeles. So, Dana, what advice are police giving residents who want to try and prevent having this sort of thing happen to them?
Yeah, Ellison, officials are reminding people to maintain their security and camera systems. Let your neighbors know if you're traveling. Also, you can put your lights on a varied timer so that it appears you're home even when you're not. It's important to remember that these burglars aren't looking for a confrontation. They are watching to see when people are not home so that they can strike. So, I mean, if it were me, I would hire personal security to try to make sure my home is safe. Ellison?
Dana Griffin, thank you. When we come back, the latest on the missing college student Riley Strain. Newly released body camera video showing the University of Missouri student talking to police the night he disappeared. What that video shows and where the 22-year-old's bank card was just found. Stay with us. We're back with Top Stories news feed, and we begin with the latest on the search for missing University of Missouri student Riley Strain. Police in Nashville releasing new body camera footage showing a brief exchange with an officer and Strain the night he disappeared. Around 10 p.m. Friday night, the two greeted each other, and then Strain walked away. Police say he did not seem to be in distress. The 22-year-old vanished on March 8th after he was kicked out of a bar. Over the weekend, Strain's bank card was found near a river. A consumer alert. Trader Joe's is recalling one of its cashew products over salmonella concerns. The FDA says packages of 50% less sodium roasted and salted whole cashews tested positive for the presence of salmonella during a routine exam. The products were recalled in 16 states. So far, no illnesses have been reported. A full list of affected products can be found on NBCNews.com. And online sales have begun for the first over-the-counter birth control pill approved in the U.S. Customers are now able to order O-Pill online. According to the company, it's available on their website or Amazon, and orders will be fulfilled within a day or two. O-Pill's suggested retail price is $19.99 for a 1-month supply, or about $50 for 3 months. CVS and Walgreens say they will offer O-Pill once they receive their shipments. Outside of Tampa, Florida, a deputy holding on for his life after a suspect who was wanted for battery drove off while he tried to detain him. The deputy firing his weapon as he clung to the speeding car. NBC's Stephen Romo has this story and a warning. Some of the video may be hard to watch.
What's the problem? Get out of the car now!
This is the moment police say a routine apprehension turned into a life-or-death situation for one deputy in Pasco County, Florida. Police say it all started at this 7-Eleven gas station when the deputy spotted Paul Smith, a man wanted in a battery by strangulation case.
Paul. Hey, can you step out of the car, please?
Smith first acting confused and then trying to get away, driving off in his SUV as the deputy, who has not been identified by the department, was clinging to the outside of his vehicle. First, the deputy tried to use his taser.
Out of the car!
But Smith continued to drive with that deputy hanging out of the car, ignoring 6 warnings from the deputy that he would use his gun.
Stop the car, give me a shot!
The deputy then shooting Smith.
Ah! What are you doing? Get out of the car! All right, stop!
Police say they provided immediate first aid on the scene, but Smith died from his injuries.
This is something that did not have to occur. The deputy tried to de-escalate it.
That deputy put on paid administrative leave as the Florida Department of Law Enforcement investigates, which is standard procedure after a deadly use of force, according to the Sheriff's Department. Tonight, that department standing by the deputy's actions.
Life is all about decisions, and so this suspect decided that he was going to try to fight with the deputy sheriff. He decided to engage in a course of conduct that put the deputy's life in jeopardy. The deputy sheriff decided that he was going to go home tonight.
And Stephen Romo joins us now in studio. So, Stephen, are we hearing anything from that suspect, Paul Smith's family, about all of this?
Yeah, we did hear from his sister late today. She said she and her mother do not think this shooting was justified. She admits that Paul was in the wrong in many ways, but she thinks there was a different way to end it other than ending his life. She says her mother, of course, is quite distraught over this. It's hard not to feel for this family, trying to make sense of this violent way that they lost their loved one.
Stephen Romo, thank you. Coming up next, a daring rescue in Italy. A group of climbers stranded on a frozen mountainside. The urgent effort to get them to safety via helicopter. Those heart-stopping moments are next. We're back now and heading overseas. A victory lap, Russian style, for President Vladimir Putin after he won a fifth term in an election where the outcome was never really in doubt. NBC's chief international correspondent Keir Simmons is in Moscow for us.
Tonight in Red Square, a flag-waving wartime celebration for Russia's re-elected president. President Putin center stage, the pinnacle of this staged, managed election. And the crowd are shouting, Russia, Russia. These are some of the 87% of Russians who officials say voted for President Putin. The young positioned in the front row tonight for 24 years. His leadership is all they've known.
All my life, President Putin.
All your life. And what do you think of him?
I love Putin.
President Putin is popular here, but not with everyone. This weekend saw arson attacks on polling stations, dye thrown into ballot boxes, and silent protests. NBC News, the first international news organization to question Putin after he won 6 more years. Mr. President, journalist Evan Gershkovich spent this election in prison. Boris Nadezhdin, who opposes your war in Ukraine, wasn't allowed to stand against you, and Alexei Navalny died in one of your prisons during your campaign. Mr. President, is this what you call democracy?
Это жизнь.
That's life, he told us, then called Navalny's death an unfortunate incident. He had agreed to release him, he said, before he died, as long as he did not return. Until now, he'd never publicly mentioned Alexei Navalny's name, and tonight the White House denying knowledge of a prisoner swap.
We have not heard a Russian official raise Navalny as part of a prisoner swap in any of those conversations.
Keir Simmons joins us now from Moscow. Keir, how are other countries reacting to these election results?
Well, Alison, you heard Jake Sullivan there saying that this is not free nor a fair election, and we've heard that echoed by other leaders of democratic countries, perhaps some coordination there. President Zelensky of Ukraine going further, suggesting that President Putin is addicted to power. And then you have a number of countries today that have been congratulating President Putin, China, Iran, North Korea, but also Saudi Arabia and Turkey. And there perhaps is the challenge for Washington and other Western powers, because, of course, Turkey is a member of NATO. Saudi Arabia is working closely with the US on the Gaza crisis. At moments like this, internationally, you kind of pull back the curtain a little bit on alliances and partnerships. And, of course, say, for example, when it comes to Saudi Arabia and Turkey, those alliances and partnerships include the US and also, to a certain extent, Russia.
Keir Simmons, amazing reporting. Thank you, and stay safe. Turning now to Top Stories Global Watch. Another volcanic eruption in Iceland forcing the evacuation of a popular geothermal resort. Video shows bathers rushing out of a pool as sirens blare around them. The eruption is the 4th in the last 3 months, again threatening a nearby fishing village where few residents remain after the previous eruptions. The volcanic smoke could be seen as far as the capital city of Reykjavik. No injuries were reported. A daring rescue in Italy, about 7,000 feet above sea level. New video shows rescuers airdropping onto a mountainside in the Alps, crews using ice axes to reach a frozen gully where a group of climbers were stuck. The group was airlifted to safety and are reportedly in good health. And record-shattering temperatures in Brazil. Over the weekend, the heat index in Rio de Janeiro soaring past 144 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the feels-like temperature with humidity. The actual temperature was around 107 degrees. Locals flocking to beaches to try and escape the scorching heat. No word on any heat-related deaths or injuries. We're going to turn now to the Americas and a deepening economic crisis in Cuba. Rare protests breaking out in the country's second-largest city over widespread blackouts and a dangerous shortage on food, medicine, and fuel. The U.S. urging Cuba's government to allow peaceful demonstrations to continue, but Cuba firing back. NBC's Ed Augustine is in Havana with the latest.
Tensions reaching a boiling point in Cuba. Hundreds of people participated Sunday in a rare public protest amid a worsening economic crisis that has left everyday Cubans without enough food, electricity, or medication. Cuban-run TV showing people flooding the streets of the island's second-largest city, Santiago de Cuba. demonstrators seen chanting for electricity and food, as some Cubans have experienced power outages for more than 18 hours a day.
I think there are three crises going on at the same time, an economic crisis, a social crisis, and now a political crisis. Of course, the most important and the most difficult to solve is the economic one.
After the protest, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel taking to social media saying, quote, mediocre politicians and terrorists on social media lined up from South Florida to fire up the streets of Cuba. The US Embassy in Havana urging Cuba's government to respect the human rights of the protesters and address the legitimate needs of the Cuban people. But today, in response to the embassy, Cuba's foreign ministry announcing it had summoned the top US diplomat in Havana, accusing the embassy of interfering in the nation's internal affairs. The US has sanctioned Cuba for more than 60 years, but in recent years they've been ratcheted up even more. President Biden has stuck with so-called maximum pressure sanctions that were imposed on this island during the Trump administration. Economists say they cost Cuba billions of dollars a year. Now, coupled with a moribund planned economy, they've created a cash crunch. Today, Cubans struggle with increasing shortages in food, medicine, fuel and power. Inflation has risen sharply, making many products unaffordable for Cubans who depend on an average monthly state salary, the equivalent of just $16. Earlier this month, gasoline price hikes also went into effect, in some cases raising gas prices about 500%.
Esto que está haciendo el país está montado sobre la inflación. No puede ser real, señores.
In another rare move, Cuba has asked the UN World Food Programme for assistance, requesting powdered milk for young children. All this while the Cuban peso has plummeted.
Inflation has really gone crazy over the last couple of years, to the point where if your salary is entirely in Cuban pesos, its value has deteriorated about 90% compared to the US dollar in just the last 2 years.
Demand has spiked for the US dollar, leaving Cubans with limited options to live out their daily lives.
Pueblo no tiene cómo responder si no sabemos, por eso es que existe el mercado negro acerca del dólar, porque no se ha tomado una medida.
Drastic measures in the face of uncertainty.
Younger Cubans have sort of lost hope in the possibility that it's going to get better anytime soon.
And Ed Augustine joins us now from Havana, Cuba. Ed, you're there on the ground. Walk us through what the reality is like in Cuba with these power outages.
These power outages have been a reality for millions of Cubans for years now. I'm broadcasting and I'm speaking to you from Havana, where there are approximately 2 million people. That's only about a fifth of the population of Cuba. 4/5 of the Cuban population lives in the provinces. And we're far more insulated in Havana. So sometimes the power goes in my house. You know, I had a power cut for about an hour yesterday. It's annoying, but it's not a game changer. In the provinces, millions of people have been living for months with power outages that can stretch sometimes 12, sometimes 18 hours. I spoke to a source yesterday who lives in the westerly province of Pinar del Rio in a small village. He said that he had less than 2 hours of power yesterday. Just imagine getting back to your house after a day at work with no light and seeing the small amount of food you have for you and your family slowly going off in the fridge because there's not even enough power to keep it refrigerated. It's a very tense, difficult situation for people.
And Ed, the United States has responded to the allegations from Havana that they've intervened with international affairs, right? What are they saying?
Well, the Cuban allegation in general, when they talk about US, what they'd say interference or meddling, is that the sanctions are of themselves a way of creating misery in Cuba. You know, that by reducing the amount of money that the Cuban government has to spend on things like food to feed people and petrol to keep the power on, they are creating the context for these protests and general popular discontent. The US government rejects that. The State Department today said that the accusation that that the United States government was behind the protests was, quote, absurd, and has roundly rejected the allegation.
Ed Augustine, thank you. When we come back, coming face to face with a cougar, a group of cyclists attacked by the animal, during a ride last month, how they fought back and saved their friend. That's next.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.